Please note, I have started the recording for the pre-proposal meeting. This is a live pre-proposal meeting regarding the City and County of Denver's Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency's request for proposals for Denver's natural resource management workforce ecosystem analysis. This pre-proposal meeting is being recorded and a link will be posted through BidNet as an addendum after today's meeting. Audience members are able to watch the live presentation, and we ask that questions be submitted through the Q&A function. We'll monitor questions throughout the presentation and respond to any clarifying questions as we're able. And we've also reserved time at the end to go through all other questions after the presentation is completed. In addition, we'll also be responding to all questions submitted today, and we'll post an addendum to BidNet after the meeting. Please remember to keep your mute on during the meeting. It's helpful for any outside disruptions that come through. And if you used the call-in number today, you can press *6 and that will mute and unmute your phone. My name is Kendra Alfieri, and I'll be the contract administrator for the project. I also have on the line today the project manager, Justman Anderson. If you are interested in being listed on the attendance sheet, please post your name, company name, and your email address in the chat, and we'll get you added. So here's the agenda for the meeting. We'll go through this. The PowerPoint presentation was sent out earlier this morning in the communications tab in BidNet for anyone who wants to follow along if you're not able to join via the Teams link. And now I'll hand it over to Justman Anderson, the project manager, for an overview of the project.
Thanks, Kendra. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Yep, my name is Justman Anderson. It's a pleasure to be with you all here today. First of all, I want to give you my sincerest thanks, like I said, for jumping on this morning. I know it's a little bit early, but I'm going to start with who we are. So CASR is an acronym that stands for the Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency, as Kendra had mentioned prior. Our vision is to build a carbon-free, sustainable, and resilient Denver for all. We have a variety of programs to achieve this. Some of our programs are rebates for e-bikes and heat pumps. We have both community solar gardens and incentives for nonprofits, businesses, and the community to increase access to energy systems. And we're also investing in green workforce. So our green workforce strategy is to drive demand for quality jobs, foster creation of jobs that reduce GHG emissions and increased climate resiliency, and reduce barriers and increase access to careers for residents from Denver's priority populations. Next slide, please. So an overview of this RFP is, CASR is issuing this RFP seeking qualified organizations to provide a workforce ecosystem analysis and labor market assessment of the current natural resource management workforce sector in Denver. To achieve our green workforce strategy, which I mentioned in the last slide, we seek to understand which industries in the field of natural resource management are quality career track jobs in Denver that provide family-sustaining wages, have expected job growth, or career advancement opportunities, and are needed to support the Denver's Office of Climate Action and Sustainability and Resiliency in meeting our climate goals by 2040. CASR anticipates awarding one contract of up to $100,000 for 1-year term. However, the city reserves the right to offer the chosen proposers one or more extension of the contract for up to an additional 4 years, dependent on project development and adding additional funding if it comes available under this RFP. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Great, so I'm going to review the goals of this RFP. The first goal of this RFP is to define the industries, specific jobs, and growth needed within the natural resource management sectors to support CASR's climate goals of cultivating climate resiliency in Denver. That goal will involve specific tasks, including performing background research and analyzing public labor market data, including Denver employment data, annual total employment, breakdown by sectors, subsectors, and regions, as well as demographic data such as race, ethnicity, gender, veterans, and aging workforce members. That task will also involve analyzing existing regional and national workforce development initiatives and summarize what works well and what doesn't to form a successful initiative. And lastly, that task will involve coordinating with CASR's Green Workforce team, which is myself and the 4 other folks on our team, and our Adaptation and Resiliency team, which consists of, I think, around 4 folks currently, to understand the areas of importance to cultivating climate resiliency in Denver. Now, the second goal of this RFP is to explain workforce ecosystem in each industry, including current and future job growth, wages, barriers and gaps in the workforce pathways, career advancement opportunities, and key stakeholders. So that goal will involve certain tasks, and I'm going to list them out. So that will involve determining workforce stakeholders with whom to engage. Stakeholders should include relevant employers, training providers, workforce development organizations, internal city teams or agencies with related natural resource management plans, and other leaders in the industry. Now, the goal of stakeholder engagement are to determine whether there are workforce gaps and needs, and if so, learn the specifics. Collect ideas for equity-focused implementation initiatives and ways to address any gaps or needs that exist. To learn about other potential stakeholders or partners who should be included in the process. To identify providers of workforce programs and innovations from across the country that may have local applicability. And lastly is just a note here, is that some stakeholders may speak a language other than English. And so translation of materials or interpretation at events should be considered in the proposal. Lastly, this task will involve designing a gap analysis of current workforce conditions compared to what is needed to support CASR's climate goals of cultivating climate resiliency in Denver. Specifically, installation, maintenance, and management of natural resources needed to reach the climate adaptation resiliency targets should be analyzed, and the expected gap quantified. Inherent to the completion of this gaps analysis is the need to assess current and future demand if the city's goals are met. The final goal of this RFP is to develop equity-centered recommendations for addressing talent gaps with a focus on 2-year implementation time horizon and longer-term recommendations. This goal will involve tasks such as presenting recommendations for implementation phase, and where possible, the recommendations should be framed around what is actionable for local government. The recommendations should cater to specific needs identified from this analysis phase to ensure it's addressing issues in Denver. And then based on the recommendations for the implementation of strategies to address the identified gaps in the natural resource management workforce. Specific metrics should be identified to help Denver establish targets and goals. Metrics should be selected through a lens of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's chat a little bit about deliverables. I do have an example of an ecosystem analysis that we've completed last year. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. I think it's going to be really help to frame these deliverables and what we're looking for. But I just want to talk about the deliverables for this RFP for a moment. So they include stakeholder engagement and a full gap analysis, where stakeholder engagement is to include facilitated virtual one-on-one and focus group stakeholder engagement, which will also include, as mentioned prior, translation and interpretation where needed, and at least one in-person focus group engagement. There's obviously flexibility in how that is, what the proposer decides to do based off of experience and expertise. These are just some deliverables that we've experienced in our most previous RFP that worked well, or ecosystem analysis that worked well. And then finally, where the final synthesized report and gap analysis is the deliverable that shall include a definition of the industries within the natural resource management sector needed to support CASR's climate goals, a gap analysis for future demand and expected growth here in Denver, and employment data for natural resource management jobs, including, as said prior, demographics, wage, education, and certification requirements. I'll show you an example of these here in the next slide to come. The full synthesized report and gap analysis shall also include a survey of the natural resource management employers and a training inventory of the natural resource management industry in Denver, including existing program review, best practices, and program outcome data. The stakeholder list, the gap analysis should include a stakeholder list, including those who are engaged and who may be useful to engage with during future implementation activities. And it should include a summary of stakeholder feedback on current employment gaps and needed suggestions for improvement and implementation ideas. Awardees will be expected to coordinate project details, review project materials, schedule outreach, and provide any updates related to the project budget, timeline, and deliverables with CASR teams via regular project management meetings to be determined upon initiation of the contract. And as I mentioned before, the Green Workforce team or myself will be primarily managing this project, but there's going to be a significant amount of collaboration with our adaptation and resiliency team, who is working on a couple of big projects here on their own. So they're going to be collaboration to determine where they're headed, what goals they think are important, what sectors they're looking to impact here most importantly in the next couple of years, and then out into the future. Next slide, please. Okay. This one might have some funny things. Kendra, could you hit next again and see what happens? Yes, and again. And again. Okay, thank you. Just pause right there. Great. So this is, I took this slide from our other ecosystem analysis presentation, but behold the ecosystem analysis in the beneficial electrification workforce that I was referring to prior. So I just wanted to provide this example because it was really great. It was completed in 2023. And specifically, the goal for this ecosystem analysis was similar, was to help us understand the workforce gaps and needs, including the specific occupations that support the decarbonization of buildings and homes through the electrification of heating and cooling appliances. This report is publicly available, and I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to this report here in the chat. I encourage folks interested in applying to review it. And let us know if you have any questions in regards to the report. So the consultants for this report work closely with CASR's Green Workforce team and our Buildings and Homes team to define the jobs needed to grow in this industry to meet our climate goals. They held various in-person and virtual events to understand the needs and gaps in each field. As you can see, they discovered that the below occupations, so insulation workers, electricians, HVAC mechanics and installers, plumbers, pipe fitters, and steam fitters, needed to be specifically trained in installing electrified equipment to move Denver towards an electrified future. Next slide, please. Can you hit next one more time, Kendra? Perfect. Stop right there. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Oh, great. So this is the example continued. So as you can see here, the study looked at various components within each previously mentioned occupation, such as current race and ethnicity profiles and occupation-specific education and training requirements. The report defined the occupational growth needed to meet our city's electrification goals, finding that the number of HVAC contractors skilled in installing heat pumps must grow by 23.6% every single year, which is substantial. With this recommendation, we created a funding opportunity to create training opportunities on how to install electrified equipment in the HVAC industry. It's very exciting. I mean, as you can see here, reports like this are needed for us to determine where our funding is going to be most impactful and where we need to urgently focus, right, our dollars. So we hope to, with this report, we then created the funding opportunity, which I mentioned, and we hope to announce awardees soon. Next slide, please. So I want to call out a couple of important pieces about our budget and timeline here. As stated before, the budget is not to exceed $100,000 over a one-year period. One of the required attachments is a rate table. Please note, and Kendra might cover this later on, but please note that all prices quoted shall be firm and fixed for the specified contract period, or in other words, rates cannot change once they are agreed to. So a note about the timeline, you'll see a suggested timeline in the RFP itself. It's suggested. I just wanted to say that for reference, the report that we just talked about, the beneficial electrification workforce ecosystem analysis that was completed last year, took them 6 months to do. So with that, I am finished.
Okay, thank you, Jasmine. Next, we will go through the requirements for the RFP. So the requirements are as followed. The diversity and inclusiveness in the city solicitations information request form must be completed, and a copy must be included, returned with the proposal. Make sure that the email address for the city contact is kendra.alfieri@denvergov.org. I've also made this a required document for you to upload in BidNet when you submit your proposal, because if this form is not submitted with your proposal, you will be found non-responsive. And unfortunately, we will not be able to move forward. So this has to be included. Required insurance is also non-negotiable. The city does not negotiate insurance requirements or contract insurance language, and any objections that are not formally raised in the selection process are waived. So you'll want to review the sample agreement, which is attachment number 1 for the required insurance amounts. They are under paragraph 9 titled Insurance of the RFP. The required insurances on this project are workman's comp and employer's liability, commercial general liability, business automobile liability, and cyber insurance if you are going to be utilizing a database. See page 8 of the RFP for the proposal submittal requirements. You will upload one electronic PDF document that will address all items 1 through 7. Make sure that you are addressing each one and that you're attaching the required information for each in the proposal. So that's the transmittal letter, the technical proposal and timeline, budget and pricing, rates, project team information, PV and summary of previous technical work, and then the 3 required forms, which is the diversity and inclusiveness form, your certificate of good standing, which if you don't have one, you can indicate that you are going to be getting it if you are awarded. So just upload a document that reflects that in place. And then also your signed W-9. And now we'll go through the deadlines. So the deadlines to submit any questions for this request for proposal is August 20th by 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And CASA will respond to all questions by August 23rd. Then submissions are due by September 9th at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Again, I can't stress enough to allow yourselves enough time to upload the documents and make sure that if you are operating in a different time zone, to make sure that you put a reminder on your calendar for when these are due. And again, that is 10 a.m. Mountain Time. BidNet automatically closes the project at 10 a.m. on Mountain Time. So if you are still uploading your documents, you're still in the process, it will lock you out and you will not be able to submit your proposal. So just know that if this does happen, we are not able to accept any late submissions. So please, please do not leave this until the last minute to do. Make sure that you are completing the proposer's checklist. That's on page 31 of the proposal to make sure that you don't miss anything also. All communications must be sent to me, and my email is provided several times in the request for proposal as the designated contact. Make sure that you don't reach out to the project manager or anyone else from our department who is involved in the RFP. That's from the date of issuance to the completion of the selection process. This is because this is considered an open procurement until we have an executed contract in place. So this ensures that we keep the process fair for everyone who's involved and interested in the project. All communications go through BidNet. All questions and answers get posted in BidNet so that everyone is receiving the same information. Please note that a proposer can be disqualified from further participation in the process at the city's sole discretion if communication is directed to anyone other than me, Kendra Alfieri, during the open procurement. So the only communications, again, that are allowed is through submitting those questions on BidNet. And so the questions and proposals are all submitted through BidNet, which is also known as the Rocky Mountain e-purchasing system. If you're not registered with BidNet yet, it's free to sign up, and you can also view all the other requests for proposals from CASR, as well as set up notifications to get notified from any updates to the RFPs, any addendum postings, etc. Many other agencies within the city also utilize BidNet to post RFPs, so it's a great way to stay connected to city projects with free registration. And then I will go ahead and post that link in the chat. And then now we will go through and go to any questions that anyone has regarding the RFP for Chessman.
If you guys think of anything, just remember you can go ahead and post those questions on BidNet, and I will answer them as quickly as possible.
Okay. Last call for any questions?
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Melissa Rowe, I'm from Echo Northwest. Could you confirm, I apologize if it was in the RFP, but could you confirm that proposals for more than $100,000 will not be considered?
I can confirm that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, of course. And I know Eco Northwest. Y'all are in Portland, right?
Yes.
Yes, I studied with Ed Whitelaw in university.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Great. I'm actually located in Salt Lake City. I'm one of our remote people that was in Portland for years.
Cool.
That's
Nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you.
I see Ben Kittleston is typing something, so we'll wait for that to pop up. Are there other local governments that have done similar workforce analyses that y'all are modeling this project off of? We're not modeling it off of anything another local government has done. I will say the state is currently doing a workforce ecosystem analysis in regards to the beneficial electrification industry. And I think that honestly might be modeled off of the one that I shared as an example that we kind of kept within the Denver metro region. But no, in looking for other natural resource management ecosystem analyses out there, I will say there are some that you could look to. I think I've seen one or two others in different states, but no, we are not modeling it off of anything in particular. Good question, Ben. Yep, absolutely. Anything else? Any other questions you all may have?
Okay. I think that's it.
Okay.
So like just Like Jasmine mentioned, go ahead and post any additional questions through BidNet. We'll get those answers posted for you. And good luck. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank
good